I've recently been thinking about something. If you work in AI governance, you've probably helped a company write its AI policy or thought through principles, data classification, and acceptable use policies. So let me ask you this question that I've been thinking about myself as I wrestle with this thought. Do you have your own written AI policy for how you personally use AI? Many of us don't. At least I didn't until I started getting ready for this video. And I think this one needs careful thought for the reasons that I'll share shortly. Hi, everyone. My name is Obi. I help professionals build careers in AI governance. And if you're new on this channel, I want to welcome you. I am an educator and a researcher, and I also do consulting in AI governance and behavioral cybersecurity. In this video, we are talking about personal AI governance. And by the end, the goal is that you're ready to draft your own one-page policy, and I'll link a template in the description below. So let me make this more practical. Almost nobody is going to walk up to you and ask you, what's your personal AI policy? In those exact words. That's not how the question shows up. It shows up in disguise. So let me show you a few of those disguises and tell me if you've experienced any of them. Scenario one is this. A client hires you for AI governance work. Somewhere in the procurement process or in the first working session with them, someone asks, how do you handle our data when you use AI tools in this engagement? That's the personal AI policy question. And it's wearing a different hat. It's wearing a data, security, and privacy hat. If you've thought about your data rules ahead of time, you have a clean answer. If you haven't, you're improvising in front of a paying client. Scenario two, a job interview for an AI adjacent role. You're interviewing for something in trust and safety, responsible AI risk, or governance. And the hiring manager asks you this question. Walk me through how you personally use AI in your own work. Different words, same underlying question. And in a field where credibility matters, a thoughtful answer is a kind of signal that separates candidates. Scenario three, your own leadership inside your own organization. Your CISO, your general counsel, or your head of compliance is rolling out an AI usage policy. They turn to the governance team and they ask, what controls are you using personally? Or something even more pointed, would you be comfortable if every prompt you've written this month was reviewable? That's a thought. That would be revealing. And that's worse than reviewing one's browser history. But that's a personal AI policy question asked at a time that you least expect. Scenario four is a vendor risk review. If you're a contractor or a freelancer, or you're running a small consultancy, larger clients are starting to put AI use questions directly into their vendor security reviews. Do you use generative AI in delivering services? If so, describe your controls, your data handling, and your human oversight. That's a written form of your personal AI policy question attached to whether you get the contract. These are four scenarios with different disguises, but the same underlying question. A policy is a decision that you make when you are thinking clearly. The whole point of a policy, any policy, is to make the decision before the pressure hits. If we have a written policy, we've already thought through these situations. If we don't, we're making those judgment calls in real time and under pressure with no guardrails. And improvising is where trust starts to leak. Let me name the stakes underneath these four scenarios. The first is data exposure. Many are pasting things into AI tools that probably shouldn't be there. Maybe it's client information, internal documents, hopefully not something covered by an NDA. And this is not usually because one is careless. No, I don't think so. I think it's just maybe because we haven't drawn that line yet. Now remember, once the data is in, it's in. Now, and if you've been doing this before you watch this video, this is not to call you out, but rather to start today to make some changes. Some researchers at Candid wrote a piece earlier this year aimed at nonprofit professionals working with AI when their organizations had no policies in place. Their argument was simple. The absence of a policy shouldn't be the absence of responsibility. If the organization that you're working with hasn't drawn that line, It doesn't mean that there's no line. It just means that we have to draw it ourselves. Second is consistency. Without a written rule, we make ad hoc judgments under pressure. Sometimes those judgments are good, sometimes they're not. Either way, they will vary, which means that our practice as governance professionals begins to look inconsistent from the outside. A written policy is how we make our practice predictable, including to ourselves. Now, a quick distinction before we go further. What I'm talking about here isn't about AI fluency. Fluency is how you work with AI, the skill side of it. Personal governance is a rule that you operate by. The policy side, it's where you operationalize your own personal ethics. What I'm describing is a one-page document, 4 sections, something that you revisit every quarter or so as the tools that you use change. The point in all of this, that's what's saying, is that a personal AI policy is not a smaller organization policy. It's a little more specific and it's smaller. Nobody else can write the rules that fit how you actually work with your AI tools, how you work with your stakeholders, or the judgment calls that you make. That's the whole point of this. So let's walk through the 4 pillars that need to form your AI, your personal AI policy. Pillar number 1 is principles. These are your 3 to 5 North Star statements. They are short and they're specific to how you want to operate. Now, the few that I've heard from people that I'm connected with are, I don't outsource judgment that I'm paid to exercise. Every piece of content I publish starts with my thinking, not the AI. If a human is going to be affected by the output, a human should review the output. AI assists my thinking, it doesn't replace it. These may sound like slogans, but they are examples of tests that you run when you're not sure what to do. Pillar number 2 is data rules. What goes into a prompt and what never does? Most personal policies will cover 4 categories: client or customer data, anything covered by an NDA, proprietary work products, whether it's your company's or someone else's, and personal sensitive information. Remember that this isn't never use AI for work. Frankly, that ship has sailed. We've moved way past that type of advice. It's more specific. It's more like, which tools have you cleared for which category of data? And what's the line between using an enterprise account, which is fine, and a personal account, which may not be? If you can't answer that off the top of your head, you don't have a rule. Pillar number 3 is verification. What's your standard before AI-assisted work goes out the door? Some things you'll fact check yourself, and there are some things that you will need to get a second human pass. The lower stakes stuff might go through with a lighter touch. Now, there's a practice that I'm beginning to notice more often. It's the reviewed by tagline, whether it's in blog posts or it's in white papers. As the stakes go up, these write-ups are beginning to include reviewed by. You may have noticed this in health content. There's a byline that usually would say medically reviewed by with a named professional. Even finance content that does the same thing, reviewed by a CPA or CFP. It's a public signal that another human with credentials actually looked at the work before it went out. I think this practice is going to spread to AI-assisted work. So in your own verification standard, ask, for high-stakes work like regulatory submissions, board-level analysis, client deliverables, public content, who reviews it before it goes out? And if the answer is just me and the AI, that's probably a gap. I'll be honest, I'm working on this myself. Now, in my research, there's a clear, rigorous, peer-reviewed, no-nonsense process that ensures quality work. For my non-academic work, I'm thinking carefully about what a reviewed by step might look like. First, I'm bringing in what I've learned from my academic life, which is verifying every source, every citation, and thinking through each word that I choose to use. Now, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. Pillar 4 is boundaries. What stays human? This one gets overlooked, and I think it might be the most important. This one applies to everyone as much as it does to governance professionals. sign-offs that carry personal accountability, attestations to regulators, anything where your name is on the line and the buck stops with you. Those should stay human-led, even if AI helped you get there. Beyond your professional role, there are also skills that you don't want to lose. Judgment calls that should stay yours. For example, tasks where the doing is the point and where shortcutting the work shortcuts your own learning. My co-authors and I are currently working on a study on AI over-reliance and its determinants and consequences. Our preliminary findings are really interesting, and I'll fill you in when we finalize the interpretation of the results. In any case, being mindful of the extent to which we use these AI tools and our dependence on it, it's something that will be studied for years to come. I've often wondered if AI over-reliance would become a clinical concern in the same way that internet addiction did. Something to think about. So now is the time to create some boundaries on use. Name what stays human on purpose. So this is what I would suggest. Block 30 minutes or so this week. Open a blank document. Use the 4 pillars as headers. Write the version that's right for you right now. Remember, it doesn't need to be perfect and it can keep evolving. I've put together a 1-page template that you can use and fill it in directly. It's linked in the description below, so it's free to download. My own policy is a work in progress. There are 4 sections, half a page, and a couple of gray areas that I'm still sitting with. Yours will probably start the same way. If you're working on a broader move into AI governance, the training program link is also in the description below. Now, a quick question for you in the comments. What's one rule already in your personal AI policy? Even if you've never written it down before, I am really curious to know how people are thinking about this. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.